This is CJSW's Municipal Election Coverage, your audio guide to Calgary's 2025 election. This series gives you interviews with candidates running for office, exploring the people, policies, and issues that will shape Calgary's future. We're broadcasting from CJSW 90.9 FM, located at the University of Calgary, on the traditional territories of the people of the Treaty 7 region in southern Alberta. Before we begin, we would like to remind listeners that the views expressed in this podcast are those of the candidates and the interview subjects, and not those of CJSW or its staff. Ward 11 covers most of Calgary's southwest quadrant. Home to major amenities like Chinook Centre and South Centre Mall, Ward 11 is rich with public libraries, recreation centres, and other facilities geared towards families and seniors. Anchored by McLeod Trail and Elbow Drive, it is built around mobility with access to Calgary's South LRT and major bus routes. As many of these communities age, residents are calling for renewed investment, from enhanced transit services around major stations to improved sidewalks, safer crosswalks, and more inclusive housing near key corridors. The communities included in Ward 11 are Acadia, Bayview, Bel-Aire, Braeside, Cedarbrae, Chinook Park, Douglasdale, Douglasglen, Eagle Ridge, Fairview, Garrison Green, Haysboro, Kelvin Grove, Kingsland, Lakeview, Maple Ridge, Mayfair, Meadowland Park, North Glenmore Park, Oakridge, Palliser, Pump Hill, Riverbend, Southwood, Willow Park, and Windsor Park. According to the 2024 Fall Survey of Calgarians, citizens in Ward 11 report their top issues as infrastructure, traffic and roads, homelessness, poverty and affordable housing, and economy. The same report also highlights that 84% of citizens in Ward 11 feel safe walking alone in their neighbourhood after dark, which is higher than the citywide response. The full survey will be linked in our episode description. We reached out to nominated candidates and trustees running in the 2025 general election to participate in this podcast. The following interviews feature only those candidates who responded and were available to participate within our production timeline. To ensure consistency, we selected about 1 minute of each candidate's response to include in this episode. The audio is presented unedited, and we've aimed to fairly represent each participant's message and voice. We remain committed to providing space for all voices and encourage voters to learn more about every candidate by visiting electionscalgary.ca. Councillor Courtney Penner has represented Ward 11 since 2021 and is seeking re-election in the fall. There are a few other hopefuls competing for the seat in Ward 11. It's time to hear from the candidates themselves. We asked each of them the same set of questions to help you compare their priorities, values, and vision for Ward 11. On social services, what do you believe is the city's role in supporting vulnerable Calgarians through social services such as mental health support and harm reduction? Running with the Calgary Party, Alex Williams.
Yeah, the city has a really unique role to play when it comes to mental health, social services, and supports for folks. On the municipal level, we see it every single day. You know, the provincial government, we have MLAs who are often off in Edmonton. We have MPs who are often in Ottawa. And so they're sometimes missing, you know, that really personal lived experience. And I don't believe you can just walk by someone without helping them. So we have a unique opportunity and unique responsibility to help the people that we see every single day in the city. That means homeless shelters, making sure people have safe place to sleep, and ideally moving people out of the shelter system and into long-term opportunities to be cared for, as well as mental health, and hopefully catching people before they fall into worse situations.
Running as an independent, Courtney Penner.
Well, those are three broad and very different topics, but can be interrelated. And so I think it's important that we look at them in that respect. What I would say, generally for social services is our city thrives when we all work together and when we all take care of each other. And so in all the ways that we can, work to provide housing for individuals, and that often is, partnering with our nonprofit organizations in order to get people or keep people in housing. That's really critical. I would also say things like partnering with our food bank to make sure that there's food security. That is one of the number one ways to alleviate poverty for families. And then I think with respect to harm reduction, those are ongoing conversations. Again, we need to have with partners in the city who are serving individuals who are using substances, but as well have that fulsome conversation with the province on what harm reduction looks like and feels like, because we also know individuals who use substances come from a lot of different backgrounds, everything from working people in the trades to those who are unhoused.
On affordable housing, what specific policies or initiatives would you support to improve housing affordability and accessibility in Calgary? From Alex Williams.
The way that we start addressing housing affordability is making sure we build homes, right? It doesn't matter how much homes cost if we don't have enough homes to go around. And so one of the places that I'd like to start, and we're talking about Ward 11 here, is we have an opportunity along McLeod Trail to build a ton of housing for people and a ton of variety of housing options for people, right? Whether that's supportive housing options that have that mental health care worked in there, whether that's just condos that people can buy and own on their own, and making sure that those housing options are around community amenities so that we're not just building homes, we're also building all of the things that people need along with those homes. So starting with housing first, that's top priority number one. Beyond that, making sure that we cut red tape so that people can actually get homes built. Right now, every single little bit of extra bureaucracy that home builders have to go through, or little bits of lack of clarity in our bylaws that we have to go through, result in tens of thousands of dollars extra being spent just to produce those homes. And so all of those little requirements start stacking up and adding up and affecting that cost of housing that we're talking about. And that's not just for owning, but also when it comes down to us who rent. We need to make sure that there are rental options available where people need them and the type of rentals that people are looking for as well.
From Courtney Penner.
Yeah, I've been a big champion of the Home is Here strategy and helped move that forward. And then recently we did land use bylaw updates again to address some housing affordability that myself and Councillor Walcott, it took us 3 tries, but we eventually got it through. So staying committed to that is really important. I think we have room to grow in our non-market housing policy and how we get land into the sector in order to provide housing. And I would say other things is generally just we know when we increase supply, we've already seen, right, with increased supply in the city, rents have gone down. And so we need to continue to do that. And I think we definitely need to also look at, where is the gap in market? So things like 3-bedroom apartments continue to be a gap. So we need to also, be working with the development community to identify the kind of product and the right fit for the land and be working towards getting those kinds of projects into our city so that we have that full spectrum of housing.
On public safety, how would you balance community safety with calls for accountability and reform in our police, fire, and emergency services? From Alex Williams.
New homes are being built with sprinklers built into the system, into the homes, because the fire department can't get there in time. So we have a problem where our services are being spread thin. And then you're right, talking about the need for reform in many of these services and making sure that as we move forward with the community. And that means, I think, a lot of tackling root causes. The root cause of safety concerns, of crime concerns, et cetera, is that people don't feel secure in their housing or they don't have housing at all. And so making sure that we actually start with a housing first policy when it comes to all of this, all of what we're doing, making sure that people have a safe, secured, locked door that they can call home, as opposed to feeling cast out and onto the street. And so it's been great that the city has been tackling some of the symptoms of these issues, but it's time that we get to the root causes and make sure that we create a city that everyone can call home and that people who come here for school or come here for work can see it as an opportunity to actually spend the rest of their lives here as well.
From Courtney Penner.
Safety is a tricky subject because safety means something different to everybody, and the perception of safety is different, even when you have a split amongst genders, right? So those who are male identifying typically tend to feel a lot safer than women do, for lots of number of reasons. And so I think when we talk about safety, we do need to take a holistic approach on what does that mean and who does it mean that for. And often, though, safety initiatives are some of our most costly initiatives. And so when I think about even, if we were to say things like increase the number of bylaw officers or police officers, those are costly things to do. But it doesn't mean that they're not worthwhile investments. One of the things I've been talking a lot about is actually mental health supports for our frontline officers, because hurt people can't help hurt people. And so in all the ways that we can provide supports for our first responders, they're better able to respond and actually stay on duty in order to support the community. I also think that there are community conversations we can continue to have about what are the actual measures and indicators of safety we need to be talking about more.
On transportation, what is your vision for improving traffic flow and public transit in your ward and across the city? From Alex Williams.
As far as active mobility goes, that largely means improving our networks, making sure that we have a complete network. If you build a Starbucks in the middle of a farmer's field, don't be shocked when nobody shops there. The same thing goes if you only build one bike lane on one street in one place, don't be shocked when nobody's using it. We need to expand those networks to improve their usability. Same thing goes for transit. If the transit network only serves people going from the suburbs to downtown, don't be shocked when we're not getting people doing crosstown trips. So we need to expand our networks to provide options for all sorts of trips. As far as driving goes, I think there's a lot of opportunity that we have to make sure that our signal timing is better, that our sensors on our intersections are better, so that you're not sitting at a red light in the middle of the night, nobody else is around, and you're wondering, why didn't this just didn't change for me? So those are some of my top priorities. And as we improve options, we improve the way traffic flows as well.
From Courtney Penner.
I think we can't deny that just, generally the city is growing. And so we are going to, if we choose to commute by car, we're going to have to get used to the fact that our roads are going to be busier, and that actually doesn't matter where we put people. So whether we put people on the edge of the city, they're still likely to be coming through our major thoroughfares. So for me, that's places like Glenmore or Crowchild or McLeod Trail, or as some people like to call it, McCrowded Trail. We just have to accept that there's going to be more vehicles because we're just simply a growing city. And so that is where having a good transit skeleton and continuing to invest in the route ahead strategy, which is our transit strategy, is really important. And so for myself, I can say, going to 4-car LRTs and getting that service, to a minimum of 10-minute intervals is really critical and important. So to that end, we're expanding the LRT barns in my area, actually the Haysboro storage garage, to accommodate those 4-car trains. And so in all the ways, it also means that we need to be purchasing equipment, which is capital cost, but very worthwhile.
On environment, how would you approach environmental sustainability in Calgary, particularly around land development, waste management, and water conservation? From Alex Williams.
Yeah, so we have a lot of opportunities on the municipal level to put into action the climate policies and environmental agendas of the provincial and federal governments. You mentioned water waste, the amount of water that we waste just by leakage through our pipes. So making sure that our infrastructure is well maintained and well taken care of. That's one aspect of it. We also have the opportunity through things like increased public transit, improving our public transit service so that it's an option for more people to be able to take advantage of. That's going to help us with our climate problems here. Making sure that we build a resilient city so that, as things do warm, that we can make sure that we still have a livable city, that we can still enjoy, and that we can make sure that Calgarians for generations to come can still enjoy these spaces that we've gotten to call home. So I look forward to putting into action all of these climate policies that have come before and making sure that we're moving forward to make sure that we have a place to call home.
From Courtney Penner.
So a couple focus areas. So land development, I think we've come a long way in terms of how we look at especially new and developing communities and the measures that we put in place there to make sure that we have green, sustainable, healthy communities much better than we did, even probably 20 years ago. And a lot of that actually comes with water conservation as well. So we're actually seeing a lot more like bioswales and water catchment ponds, dry ponds, in order to conserve water. Water management, again, it's that interprovincial relationship, and so we need to be doing that. One thing I brought forward last election, or last council term, was actually to reduce our mowing and to naturalize roadways, and that would actually require less watering, even of trees. Unfortunately, it didn't pass, but if I was reelected, with the right council, I'd absolutely look to bring it back again.
On community. In what ways do you try to give back to your community? From Alex Williams.
Yeah, so the biggest way that I try to give back to my community is by showing up. That's one thing that over the course of this campaign that I've gotten to learn and really appreciate is how many diverse perspectives there are in the community and how many wonderful people there are in the community. Door knocking has given me that opportunity. Outside of getting involved in these campaigns, in my campaign, I am on the board of the Dutch Canadian Choir. That's been a lot of fun for me. That's been a few years that I've been there. So bringing just those community engagements and community events there. I'll also say, as someone who lives car-free, actually walking out my front door and seeing my neighbors and seeing them walk their dogs as I go to the transit station, just building that community has been a really special opportunity for me.
From Courtney Penner.
One of the hardest things of being a councillor is just the demand on time. And so, prior to being elected, I was a really prolific community volunteer and haven't been able to do so as much now in this role. And in many ways, I really miss it. However, in all the ways that my, community groups and volunteer-driven organizations are hosting events or, have something going on, doing my best to share out what they're doing. So I've used my channels of communication, social media, website, to share out what other community members are doing. So in that way, I am supporting them. And I mean, volunteers are the backbone of our city. They run so many of our organizations. So also all the ways that we can help them, letters of support for their grants that they're writing, telling them about the grants that we know about, and really just helping them navigate the processes with the city if needed, in order to get the funding to operate and to do good things to bring people together.
On arts and culture. How will you support local arts and culture as a part of Calgary's identity? From Alex Williams.
Yeah. So arts is a lot of the way that we present ourselves to other people, right? The first things that people notice when they come to a new city is some of the public art that we have on display, and the way that we present ourselves outside of the city is a lot of the artistic talent that we share. I know with my choir, I've gotten to travel with it and, kind of put Calgary on display a little bit for folks. As well as, I think, film and TV and all of the creativity, and not just the big budget things, but the stuff on the ground. And so making sure that through the arts and culture scene in Calgary, that we're supporting those young, fresh, new creatives in pursuing their passions, their talents, and their future careers.
From Courtney Penner.
So as a former artist, well, I'm not former, I still dabble. I just don't sell my art anymore. One of the things I've really been big on championing is actually just attending arts and culture events in the city, because I know that, when performances sell out or when artists are at a market in a community, all of those little purchases help. And so in all the ways that I can, shop and buy local and then support local performers, I've hopefully done my best. I think that as we grow as a city, again, expanding performance venues is really important. Thinking about new opportunities for performance venues, perhaps that always aren't centered in the core. And all the ways also then like creating partnerships. I think often, you have community events, they're looking for activations. Who are those local artists they could be hiring to play their shows? Who are those local vendors and artists who could be coming to take a market spot or to do a mural for them on the side of their building? These are important conversations that as councillor, when you get to know a lot of people, you can start creating and being the conduit for those conversations.
On education. While education is largely a provincial responsibility, how do you see the city collaborating with school boards to support accessible and quality education in your ward? From Alex Williams.
Yeah, so I've managed to chat with our current school board trustee, Nancy Close, about what we can do on the municipal level. And one of the biggest things is making sure that we have reserve land to build more schools as needed or to build expansions for schools as needed. Especially as more and more people move to Calgary, more and more areas start to densify a little bit in Calgary, making sure that we're able to provide a quality education to young people within their existing community. The biggest way that the city can assist with that and make sure that it is community focused and that kids have access to those schools is by creating safe routes to schools. That's one of my top priorities as the future Ward 11 City Councillor, is making sure that we have raised crosswalks around our schools so that people can't speed through school zones, because signs aren't magical. They don't just force people to slow down. We need to actually make the built infrastructure worth it. And make sure that we expand that network of safe routes to schools so that more and more kids are able to walk or bike their way independently and confidently and safely to their school.
From Courtney Penner.
Yeah, a couple things I can speak to. In my last term, I was actually able to partner with our school board trustee to explore the reopening of a closed school. And we were successful in being able to do that because the community came to me and I was able to connect in with the school board around how we do that. And so I think use of space and programming with our school boards is really important. Ultimately, one of the reasons that our inner city schools are stressed in terms of capacity numbers because we simply just don't have enough schools on the edge of our city. And so again, we need to continue conversations with the provincial government about opening schools and why we need to open schools faster and so that people can walk to school. We know walking to school is like so good for students, like socially, emotionally, and for brain health. And so the more that we can have schools in communities open and students can walk, the healthier we're going to be as a city. And it also creates community because people are just seeing and being with each other.
We note that Indigenous groups have their own bodies of governance, but as we are on shared land, we dedicated a question to decolonization. What is your understanding of Calgary's responsibilities under the Truth and Reconciliation Calls to Action? From Alex Williams.
So I've talked a lot about action on the municipal level with regards to climate policy and schools and other things. Truth and reconciliation is another one of those areas. I'm not an expert on the matter and I'm not going to pretend to be. I think my role as a city councillor, especially as someone who is the descendant of immigrants here, my role is to make sure that I listen and that I take into action the things that I'm recommended to do, especially on this truth and reconciliation subject. I know one of the biggest things that the city can and should be doing right now is creating the permanent residential school memorial and making sure that we have spaces available to Indigenous people to make sure that they're able to, within the city, practice their culture. Ward 11, we also have an opportunity to do a lot of integration with the Tsuut'ina Reserve and supporting their TAZA developments there. And so I see all of those as opportunities to both learn and to build together a better future.
From Courtney Penner.
I don't know that we are actively communicating that overly well. So I can speak for myself. You know, one of the first things I did when I get elected was reach out to Satina because my ward borders them and to start building relationships there. And we've been able to, you know, troubleshoot a few issues that have come, and that has strengthened relationships. I think showing up to Indigenous events, supporting Indigenous vendors, you know, personally, these are things that I can do. As a city, we, you know, advancing the calls to action through the White Goose Flying Report, supporting Indigenous Gathering Place Society, Permanent Residential School Memorial. These are all things that we are doing for our city. However, what it actually means is inviting Indigenous knowledge keepers and elders and the entire community to come participate in the processes that we are putting forward as a city. And I think measuring that is really important. So when we are doing engagement, are we capturing Indigenous voices in our engagement to make sure that we are building a city for everyone?
Finally, we gave each candidate a moment to share any closing remarks. From Alex Williams.
The biggest thing I want people to know is that your vote really does matter. We had less than 50% voter turnout on the municipal level in the previous election in 2021. And many campaigns on the federal, provincial, and municipal level win by a handful of votes. Your vote really does matter. Your ideas really do matter. I put my cell phone number in every single one of my pamphlets. I want people to be able to contact me. I want people to be able to reach out and share their ideas, their vision for the future of Ward 11, their ideas for the future of the city as a whole. Because I've grown up here, I've lived here my whole life, and I plan to live here for the rest of my life. And along the way, I'd like to make it a better city. You also have a great opportunity to get involved, no matter what your experience level is or what you care about. I came to this by way of transit advocacy, by way of housing advocacy. I take transit every single day, and I'm a renter myself. And so I see these struggles that we're facing, and I had the opportunity to get involved, and I just want this to be a call. Everybody else, everyone listening to this, also has that opportunity.
From Courtney Penner.
Thank you for this opportunity. Radio is such an incredible and important forum to reach the community. I'll be honest, the speakers are out in my car right now, and I can't tell you how much I'm missing listening to the radio to get local news, to, you know, hear new music, and I didn't really realize what a void it was. And so having the opportunity to come speak here locally to really primarily local listeners. So hello, Calgarians. Thank you for the work that you're doing in supporting Calgary artists, in supporting Calgary voices, and in skills training. One of the things I know is that we have a gap in employment for youth. And, you know, when we think about youth, we think about 16 to 24-year-olds. I know things like getting admission to the university is harder than ever, not only because of limited spaces, but just high volumes of individuals. And so in all the ways that we can continue to create opportunity as a city to support youth in the city is going to be really critical and important.
That wraps up our conversations with your ward candidates. We hope their insights help you feel more informed heading into the 2025 general election. Now, we're shifting our focus to another important group of elected officials, school board trustees. Trustees play a critical role in shaping the direction of public education. They're responsible for setting priorities, approving budgets, and making decisions that impact students, families, and communities across their school jurisdictions. While their work often happens behind the scenes, it has a direct effect on the quality of education in Calgary. Just like councillors, trustees are elected during the municipal election. To find out which board you vote for, whether it's the Calgary Board of Education, Calgary Catholic School District, or another publicly funded board, you can visit electionscalgary.ca and use the Where Do I Vote tool. We reached out to all nominated trustee candidates running in this ward, inviting them to participate in this podcast. The interviews you're about to hear include only those candidates who responded and were available within our production timeline. To keep things fair and concise, we've selected about 1 minute from each candidate's response. The audio is presented unedited, and we've done our best to ensure every participant's voice is clearly and accurately represented. Let's now hear from the trustee candidates running in this ward. What are your top 3 priorities for Calgary schools, and how do you plan to address them during your term? Running as a public school board trustee candidate, Nancy Close.
I actually have 5, and it's important to do all 5. Public education, I'm very passionate about, and of course, student success equals community success. So I'm hoping that every trustee candidate will talk about the need for building schools where they are most needed and improved funding to ensure student success in a growing city. But we also need better transportation options so our students get to class safely and quickly, and greater inclusion so that every student and family is welcome. And also what's important to me is that representation part of being a trustee, so meaningful engagement so that people feel heard and represented.
How will you ensure equitable access to quality education for students across all communities, including those from marginalized or underserved backgrounds? From Nancy Close.
Equity is hugely important, and I think I have to describe it first before answering that question. It is always about resources and allocating resources so that there's a fairness for outcomes, but it's not always about just the resources. Because I think kids, when they come to school, they have to feel like they belong and they have to feel represented. And when they're engaged in their learning and they have a voice in that learning, we know that they're going to be more successful. So equitable access for all students, whether marginalized or not, is about having the supports and services and relationships so that they can meet the outcomes just like everybody else.
How will you engage with parents, teachers, and students, and the broader community to ensure transparency and responsiveness in decision-making? From Nancy Close.
There's a variety of ways. The most important way is actually through our reports and the work we do as a collective board. So very transparent and accountable. That information is always available. But the best way to do it is to personally engage with people. So I have 42 schools right now that I represent. It's not easy when you're representing 2 wards 11 and 13. But I do try to go to school council meetings. I connect with community associations. I have a relationship with both the councillors of Ward 11 and Ward 13. I meet with MLAs. Government advocacy is hugely important in this role. So that transparency and connection has to be deliberate and intentional. It's so easy to broadcast information, but you have to engage in conversation.
What is your position on the role of schools in addressing issues such as mental health, inclusion, and anti-racism? How would you support initiatives in these areas? From Nancy Close.
Hugely important, and I think one of the things that's wonderful about public education and CBE in particular is we partner with a lot of outside community organizations in order to achieve those goals. We don't always do the work, but we have to allow the work to come to schools and be with where students are, and they're in schools.
With ongoing concerns about education funding and class sizes in Alberta, how will you advocate for the resources schools need while working within budget constraints? From Nancy Close.
Advocacy is a huge role being an elected school board trustee. We need increased funding in order to reduce class size, in order to provide the supports and services for students, families, and teachers so that people can be successful in their work or in the outcomes that we need to achieve and the excellence of student outcomes.
Is there anything else you want people to know? From Nancy Close.
I think that I'm incredibly honored to serve and represent Wards 11 and 13. I would like to be able to continue that work for the next 4 years. Representation matters. Local decision-making matters. It's not just the province making decisions, it's actually working with the province through an advocacy lens, but also local decision-making impacts student success. We have the stories, we understand what the needs are. We need to be able to create that environment and working conditions so that students are successful in each of the CBE schools.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of CJSW's Municipal Election coverage. I hope today's conversation brought you a little closer to your community and the people who want to lead it. I'm your host, Emma, and all of the source material for this episode can be found in the episode description. Remember to visit electionscalgary.ca for more information on every candidate and to check your voter registration. Again, we would like to remind listeners that the views expressed in this podcast are those of the candidates and the interview subjects, and not those of CJSW or its staff. Make sure to visit cjsw.com or the CJSW app to check out our voter education episode and our exclusive mayoral debate. Until then, take care, and please vote, follow, and share.